Orm smelled eggs, not the usual kitchen staff offerings. This was different, richer, sharper, the scent of garlic and soy mixing with scrambled yolks. She sat up, confused. It was barely 7 a.m. No one in this house moved that early except maybe the maid, and even she waited until Orm was dressed before starting breakfast. Orm pulled on a silk robe and padded down the marble staircase, barefoot. The scent only grew stronger, more real. When she stepped into the kitchen, she stopped cold. Ling was at the stove, hair tied up, sleeves rolled, wearing nothing but sweatpants and a tank top, like she'd just come back from a run. A spatula in her right hand, she flipped something in the pan with practiced calm. Orm blinked. Ling didn't look up. "You're up early." "You're cooking," Orm said, as if the world had turned upside down. "Occasionally, yes." Orm glanced at the table. There were plates already set, steamed rice, stir-fried greens, crispy garlic eggs, all hot, all homemade. "I didn't ask for this," Orm said warily. Ling looked over her shoulder. "I didn't make it for you." That stung, until she added, "I made it for everyone," as if that made it better. Orm crossed her arms. "Since when do you cook for the staff?" Ling shrugged. "I used to, before." "Before what?" Ling didn't answer. She just plated the eggs and set them at the center of the table, and Orm didn't know why it annoyed her so much that she suddenly felt included. Orm sat stiffly at the long breakfast table. The household staff were already seated, her mother included, chatting softly with the maid about a new kind of jasmine tea she wanted to try. Her brother was halfway through a second helping, humming as he scooped up rice with practiced ease. And then there was Ling, at the head of the table, calm as ever, sipping her tea like this was routine. It wasn't. Orm glanced down at her plate. Perfectly fluffed rice, vegetables sautéed in just enough oil to glisten, and eggs, still warm, still smelling like garlic and soy and something more complicated. She picked up her spoon slowly. "You should eat while it's hot," Ling said, not looking at her. Orm didn't answer. The maid spoke up instead, smiling. "It's very good, Madam Ling. Better than the cook." Ling only nodded. "She'll be back tomorrow." "I didn't know you cooked," Orm's mother added, looking pleasantly surprised. "You never did when we first moved in." Ling's gaze flicked briefly to Orm. "I stopped, for a while." That vague, unreadable tone again. Orm took a bite of egg, more out of curiosity than hunger. It was annoyingly good. Savory, slightly sweet, seasoned just right. Then Ling poured her tea. Not like a servant, not like a hostess, just like a wife pouring tea for her partner. Orm looked up sharply. Their eyes met for half a second. She didn't know what she saw, but it was unsettling how much she wanted to see it again. After breakfast, Orm slipped out to the garden with her mother. The air was fresh, the kind that clung to your skin after rain. Jasmine vines curled along the white walls, and sunlight dappled through the high hedges, throwing soft patterns across the path. Her mother walked in slow, even steps, arms folded behind her back like she always did when she was thinking. Orm broke the silence first. "You said you liked the food?" "I did," her mother smiled. "It was simple, honest. Ling made it." "I know." Orm hesitated. "Do you think she's trying to prove something?" Her mother didn't stop walking. "Maybe she's trying to live." Orm frowned. "That's not an answer." Her mother turned, gentle eyes piercing. "You want one?" Orm nodded reluctantly. Her mother looked away, thoughtful. "Ling is the kind of woman who doesn't show her cards until she's already won. If she's feeding you, it's because she wants to be close. If she's gentle, it's because she's already decided you matter." Orm's throat tightened. "That's dramatic." "It's honest." They stopped at the edge of the garden, the roses blooming pale pink around their feet. Her mother's voice softened. "But if you're not careful, you'll fall for her too fast, and you'll fall harder than you think." "I won't," Orm said too quickly. Her mother arched a brow. "Then don't reach for her when she's sleeping." Orm's breath caught. She said nothing the whole way back. The door to Ling's home office was slightly ajar. Orm hesitated before knocking, but only once. "Come in," Ling said. Orm stepped inside. The office was immaculate. Books lined the tall shelves. A crystal decanter sat untouched on a side table. Ling sat behind her desk, reading glasses perched low on her nose, flipping through a contract. Orm lingered by the door. Ling looked up. "Something wrong?" "No," Orm said. "I was just—" She didn't know what she was doing. Ling waited. "What's your favorite food?" Orm asked suddenly. Ling blinked. "Excuse me?" Orm shrugged. "You cook for everyone, but I never see you eat much. So, what's your favorite?" Ling leaned back slowly. "Is this a trick question?" "It's a conversation." That made Ling smile, just barely. "Tom Kha Gai," she said, "the way my grandmother made it. Coconut milk, kaffir lime leaves, and too much galangal." Orm tilted her head. "Too much?" "She always overdid it. It made your mouth tingle." "Did you like it?" "I still crave it sometimes." Orm watched her. "You never make it." "It's not a recipe," Ling said, looking back at her file. "It's a memory. Some things taste different when the person who made them is gone." Orm felt that in her chest. She stepped further in, then stopped. "Thanks for the breakfast," she said quietly. Ling looked up again. "You're welcome." And for a fleeting second, Orm felt like they were two real people, not roles. That night, Orm couldn't sleep. The bed felt too warm, the sheets too soft. And Ling, just inches away, slept like she always did. On her back, one arm relaxed across her stomach. Expression unreadable, even in dreams. Orm turned on her side to face her. She thought about soup, about galangal, and lime leaves, and recipes that lived in someone's hands more than on paper. About Ling saying, "It's not a recipe, it's a memory." What did that mean? What else was she keeping locked behind words like that? Orm had never asked Ling anything before that wasn't practical. Nothing soft, nothing real. And now she knew something that mattered. Not in a grand way, but in the quiet space between two people who hadn't decided yet whether to care. She watched Ling's chest rise and fall. She wanted to ask her everything. What else do you miss? Who else did you lose? What happens when someone stays? Orm reached for Ling's hand in the dark, but stopped halfway. Instead, she whispered, "I'll find the recipe," then rolled over and closed her eyes. And when she dreamed, it was of coconut and heat and a woman at the stove, laughing. A woman with Ling's eyes. The next morning, Orm appeared in the kitchen before anyone else. The cook nearly dropped her ladle. "Madam?" "I need your help," Orm said. The woman stared, blinking behind her glasses. "With—" "Soup," Orm said. "Tom Kha Gai." That earned her a proper reaction. The woman set the ladle down and folded her arms. "That's a complicated dish." "Good," Orm said. "Because I want it to taste like someone's memory." The cook raised a brow, then smiled like she understood far more than she let on. They got to work. Chicken simmered in coconut milk. Lemongrass cracked beneath the side of a knife. Galangal was sliced too thick the first time, too thin the second, and just right the third. The cook guided with quiet patience, stepping back when Orm reached for the ladle herself. "You've never chopped anything before," she said, watching Orm butcher a chili. "I've chopped people's egos," Orm muttered. The cook chuckled. "Close." By the end of the hour, Orm stood flushed and covered in a few stray drops of soup, but the kitchen smelled like something warm and right. She lifted the spoon to her lips. It was— almost. "Too flat," she said. "Not enough lime," the cook confirmed. Orm nodded. Again. She didn't know if she'd get it right, but she wanted to try. Ling wasn't expecting to smell Tom Kha Gai. She paused in the hallway just outside the kitchen, the scent hitting her like a memory. Bright citrus, creamy coconut, and something deeper. Her hand froze on the doorframe. She stepped inside and stopped. Orm stood at the stove, a towel slung over one shoulder, sleeves rolled awkwardly to her elbows. Her hair was slightly frizzy, a smear of coconut milk on her wrist. She was stirring something in the pot with a kind of determined clumsiness, biting her lip in concentration. Ling blinked. Orm turned, startled. "You're up early." "So are you." Their eyes met. Neither of them spoke. Then Ling stepped closer. Slowly, the way she approached tense clients or wild animals. "Are you cooking?" Orm cleared her throat. "No, I'm creating an edible tribute to your dead grandmother." Ling blinked again. "What?" "Nothing," Orm muttered. "It's soup." Ling crossed her arms. "You don't cook." "People change." Ling studied her, gaze unreadable. "Why?" Orm didn't answer right away. Instead, she lifted the spoon, blew on it, and held it out. Ling hesitated, then leaned in and tasted. She didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, "It's close." Orm's face twitched. "Too much lime?" "Too little salt." Orm sighed. "Tomorrow, then." And Ling, for the first time, smiled without restraint. Tomorrow. Later that morning, Orm sat on the kitchen counter, sipping juice and pretending she hadn't just spent 2 hours sweating over a soup pot. Her brother strolled in, eyes still half-lidded from sleep, and yawned. "You're up early. Did the guilt finally catch up to you?" Orm tossed a grape at him. He caught it in his mouth. "I heard you made breakfast," he said, chewing. "Is this the end of civilization?" "I didn't make breakfast. I made one dish. For Ling." "I made it for everyone," she snapped too fast. He grinned. "Right, but it just so happens to be her dead grandma's favorite childhood soup." Orm narrowed her eyes. "Get out." He leaned against the fridge, arms crossed. "You're domestic now. Next thing I know, you'll be knitting her a scarf." Orm slid off the counter. "I was curious, that's all." "Sure." "And the fact you saved her empty bowl and washed it yourself?" Orm froze. "You were spying on me?" "It's not spying if I walk in and see you cradling a ceramic dish like it's your firstborn." She turned away, cheeks hot. Her brother's voice softened. "You like her." Orm didn't respond. She just set the bowl carefully on the drying rack and didn't look back. Ling came home past midnight. Orm was still awake. She didn't know why she waited. The lights were dimmed, the house silent except for the ticking of the hallway clock. She sat in the living room with a book open but unread on her lap. The front door clicked softly. Orm didn't move. Ling stepped inside, her posture tired but composed. She didn't look surprised to see Orm there. "You waited," Ling said. "I couldn't sleep," Orm replied, which was mostly true. Ling took off her jacket. "Long day." Orm nodded, watching her. Ling crossed the room, her steps slow. She stopped in front of the armchair where Orm sat, then reached down and brushed something from Orm's shoulder. Imaginary lint, maybe. Or maybe an excuse to touch. "The soup," Ling said quietly. "It was close, very close." Orm said nothing. "It reminded me of her," Ling continued. "But not the part that hurts. The part that made me laugh." Orm looked up at her. "I'm glad," she said, voice softer than she meant it. Ling held her gaze, then, without a word, sat down on the couch beside her, not touching, just there. And that, somehow, was enough to fill the whole room. The next morning, Ling was already dressed when Orm came downstairs. She stood by the front door, keys in hand, crisp white shirt tucked into tailored slacks, phone in her pocket, the picture of calm efficiency. Orm blinked. "Going somewhere?" Ling glanced over. "I thought I'd drive you." Orm frowned. "Drive me?" "To your appointment. Your mother said you had one." Orm hadn't even remembered mentioning it. Ling lifted a shoulder like it wasn't a big deal. "Unless you don't want me to." "I didn't say that," Orm said quickly. Too quickly. Ling gave her a look that wasn't quite a smile, but softer than neutral. "Then grab your bag." Orm did, without protest. The car ride was quiet at first. Ling drove like she did everything, focused, precise, not hurried, one hand on the wheel, the other resting lightly on the gearshift. Halfway to the clinic, Orm asked, "Why are you doing this?" Ling didn't take her eyes off the road. Because I can. That's not a reason. It's the only one I have. Orm turned toward the window, annoyed at how that answer made her chest feel tight. She didn't speak again until they arrived, but when they parked, she hesitated before getting out. Thanks, she muttered. Ling said, I'll wait. And Orm, without looking back, smiled. After the appointment, Ling didn't take them home. Instead, she turned left at an intersection Orm didn't recognize and pulled into a narrow alley, parking beside a faded green awning. What is this? Orm asked. My favorite noodle stall, Ling said simply. Orm raised an eyebrow. You eat street food? I used to. Alone. The implication hung in the air. Orm followed her out of the car. The stall was small, 2 folding tables, stools that wobbled slightly, and a woman behind the counter who didn't bother looking up as they approached. A pot of broth steamed behind her like a volcano about to erupt. Ling gestured. You order. Me? You're the picky one. I'm not picky, Orm muttered, stepping up to the counter. She ordered. Not confidently, but she tried. They took a seat at the back. The broth was rich. The noodles chewy, the chili oil kicked like a mule, and somehow, it was perfect. This isn't bad, Orm admitted. Ling nodded. They ate in silence for a while. Then Ling said, without looking up, I've never brought anyone here. Orm stilled. She didn't know what to say to that, so she didn't say anything. She just reached over, stole a slice of beef from Ling's bowl, and smiled. Ling let her. They returned just before noon. The front doors swung open with their usual hush, and sunlight spilled into the marble-floored foyer. Orm stepped inside first, letting the cool air wash over her. Ling followed, her pace slower, almost deliberate, and just before Orm took the first step up toward the staircase, Ling's hand pressed gently, just gently, against the small of her back. It wasn't a push. It wasn't possessive. It was guiding. Orm stopped mid-step. Ling's hand lingered for a second, warm, steady, then fell away like nothing had happened. Orm didn't move. Ling didn't say a word. Orm turned slowly to look at her. Ling's expression was unreadable again, but her gaze held steady. Thank you, Orm said quietly. For the soup, for the noodles, for the ride, for the touch she wasn't ready to talk about. Ling gave a single nod. You're welcome. And then she walked away, heels echoing softly against the floor, like she hadn't just set something inside Orm's chest buzzing. Orm exhaled. She didn't go upstairs. She went to the kitchen and pulled out the soup ingredients again. She wasn't done trying. Orm stood at the kitchen counter again. The ingredients were already laid out. Coconut milk, lime leaves, galangal. Her hands moved with more confidence now, not skilled exactly, but sure in their trying. She didn't hear her mother enter. You're back at it? Her mother said, leaning against the door frame. Orm didn't look up. Soup doesn't cook itself. I meant your soft expression. Orm scowled, stirring harder than necessary. It's concentration. It's affection. Mother. Her mother walked over, peered into the pot. It's getting close. It has to be. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the steam rise. Then her mother said, You know, your father used to cook for me in secret. He always acted like it was a favor, but he'd hum while he did it. I'm not humming, Orm muttered. Yet. They both smiled. Orm tasted the broth. It was better, still not perfect. Her mother touched her shoulder lightly. You don't need to win her over all at once. You just need to keep showing up. Orm nodded. As the soup simmered, she ladled a portion into a clean bowl, Ling's bowl, and set it on the tray. Then she walked upstairs to deliver it, quietly. Later that afternoon, Orm stepped out of the car in front of Ling's office building, balancing a tray with a porcelain container of soup and a folded cloth napkin. She wore soft pastels, nothing dramatic, just enough to look sweet, polite, but her expression held something sharper beneath it. The receptionist greeted her with a surprised smile. Madam Orm, good afternoon. Just dropping off lunch, Orm said, breezing past with a polite nod. She didn't miss the way the receptionist, young, sharp-jawed, and unmistakably pretty, glanced down at her legs. Orm adjusted her skirt and lifted her chin. A few steps later, Ling's office door stood at the end of the hall, open halfway. The glass was frosted, but the top corner left a generous gap, one Orm noticed and didn't quite close. Inside, Ling stood talking to two suited men and the same pretty receptionist who had clearly followed her in. Orm knocked once and entered. "I brought lunch." Ling's face lit up, a rare smile warming her features. She turned to her co-workers. "This is my wife, Orm." The word hung heavy in the air, not partner, not someone I live with. Wife. Orm set the tray on Ling's desk with a small smirk. "Thought you could use something hot." Ling gave a subtle, amused look to her colleagues. "Excuse me." She ushered Orm into the office and gently closed the door. Almost. It didn't latch fully. Orm hadn't planned it, not entirely. But she didn't stop it either. Inside, Ling turned to her, amused and curious. "You came all the way just to feed me?" Orm stepped close, tugging Ling's tie slightly. "You skipped breakfast. Someone has to take care of you." Ling leaned in. "Soup won't tie me over till tonight." "No?" Orm tilted her head. Ling's mouth found hers with sudden hunger, one hand sliding behind her neck, the other pressing to the small of her back. The kiss was firm, possessive, full of something she rarely showed outside the bedroom. Heat curled low in Orm's stomach. When they parted, Ling's lipstick was slightly smudged. Orm smiled, adjusting it with her thumb. She took a step back and said innocently, "Enjoy your lunch, darling." Then, just loud enough, "Oh, I think your door's still open?" As she left, she passed the receptionist, who was studiously typing. Orm didn't miss the flush on her cheeks. Outside, Orm walked with a sway in her hips and a smirk that didn't fade for hours.